Happy Monday and welcome back to Makeup and Mental Health Monday. My name is Johnna and every Monday I sit down and talk about a different aspect of mental health while I do my makeup. This week, today, we're going to be talking about change. Why is it so hard for pretty much everyone? And we're going to look at some ways that, our brains work whenever we are considering change and, some ways to actually go about it. So, if you were curious about the question, if you were curious about what I'm going to be using on my face, then I'm going to be putting that in the description box below. Please do like and subscribe and share with a friend. All of the above helps me out and I appreciate it greatly. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, that was the part that I was getting at earlier, then please do comment those below. Or if you would like, feel free to slide into my DMs or, give me a follow, say what's up over on Instagram at Soul Searching and Squats. And without further ado, let's get into it. Some things happened and I'm just going to talk to you with this done. So, change. When it comes to change, whether it is something that we are aware of, like something that we know is going to happen, whether it's something unexpected, whether it's something that we know, hey, like this change is probably going to be for my benefit, it's still tough, right? And, why? Why is it that when we consciously know, hey, this relationship is toxic AF, it's still hard to leave, right? So I want you to think of whatever change it is that you know you need to make right now, whether that be going to bed earlier or, looking for a new job or leaving a toxic relationship, setting a boundary, whatever it is. And I want you to take that thing and ask yourself why. Why is it that you haven't done it yet? What is holding you back? What's the obstacle there? And like I mentioned in the intro, the spoiler alert, it's not you. And I say that not to give you a pass or an excuse or a way to be like, okay, well, not me, she said it's fine. I say that to let you know that, don't get down on yourself about the fact that you haven't changed yet. And the reason being because whenever we have these experiences, as we move through life, our body creates these neural pathways. And I've talked about this before. Anytime we experience anything, neurons that fire together wire together. And so anytime that we experience something, we experience these emotions, our brain creates a memory. And so these chemicals that are created, as we're feeling, having this experience, and we're feeling these feelings, and these memories are made, and this is therefore instilling a habit in us. And that habit is something that we become very familiar with, because what that habit is doing, whether or not it's a good thing for us, that habit is telling our bodies hey, this is familiar, we've done this before, we know that this thing will lead to our survival tomorrow. We know that this thing is going to make sure that we wake up the next day. And so in that sense, it's not you, it's your brain and your body just doing its job. And whenever I mentioned that we a lot of times consciously know that hey, this thing isn't the best for me, whether that be, staying up late or the toxic relationship, the bad job, whatever, viscerally, our bodies don't know that. Viscerally, our bodies know that, hey, this thing that, not our favorite, it's what we know. It's what we know will ensure livelihood the next day. And so we're going to keep on keeping on, even though the brain is nay, nay, let's not do that anymore. The body's no, I got this. I know that this is going to keep us alive. Trust me, we're good. And so in that sense, it's hard for us to have any type of change whenever we are so familiar with the other thing. And so we go to what we are familiar with, not necessarily what's best for us. And that's because that's just our brain and our body doing its job to make sure that we are here another day. And I mean, there's more research about the chemicals that are created and how whenever you have a lot of anxiety or whenever you're in a toxic relationship and your body's like creating these chemicals and these feelings, whenever those feelings aren't present, we then therefore, you know, create situations to make those chemicals happen again, because our bodies become so used to it that that's what our bodies think, you know, is the norm. And when those things aren't there, that's our body like recognizing like, oh shit, like this thing that we're used to, like these chemicals, like where are they at? Where are they at though? And so we're then going to go out and like recreate experiences and situations that give us those same chemicals, because those are the chemicals that are familiar to us, even if they are those chemicals that aren't good for us, like anxiety and like all those things. So with that being said, I hope you're still with me. There is a researcher who created the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, and his name is James Prochaska, I believe. Prochaska. Sounds sassy. If that's not the correct pronunciation, please feel free, let me know, spell it out in the comments below. But that's what we're rolling with for now. And so what he found is that there are 5 stages that we all go through whenever we are, you know, going to experience a change. And so this is something that I was like, well, let's talk about that, because, you know, whenever we are aware that, yeah, I want to have this change, like this is something that I want to do, you know, then why is it still so hard? And I explained the why. And so how do we actually go about it? And so these are the 5 steps that he found that everyone usually goes through in terms of experiencing like one of these deeply ingrained like behavioral like habits that we will have, that kind of just becomes like, you know, part of who we are. And the notion here before we go into this is that, you know, it's not linear, right? Like you're not just going to go like boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, I'm done. Made a change, right? It is that you are probably going to shift back and forth. Like there's going to be some forward and back. You're going to spend some time like in more, some time in some stages longer than others. And that's just life. You know, like there is no rules. Our experiences are all different. So allow yourself some grace with that. With that being said, the 5 stages are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, the action stage, and then the maintenance stage. And so let's talk about each one of those really quick. So the pre-contemplation stage is when you are aware of the thing, but you don't plan on changing it. So that could mean that like, you know, oh yeah, I'm always late, but like whatever, it is what it's who I am, it is what it is. Or like, yeah, like I have a drink every weekend, like so what? Or every day, or like whatever. Or yeah, this job sucks and like I could definitely work somewhere and get paid more, but whatever. So like you recognize that like something could shift, but you're not making any moves to do so. You're like, that's not something that you are currently contemplating, but you recognize it, like awareness, right? Like I've said it before about other things. Awareness is the first step. So when you're aware of the thing, that is the pre-contemplation phase. The next phase is contemplation. And so this is where you start to think, oh, well, you know, maybe, you know, what would it look like if I did change this thing? And so this is where you might want to make like a cost analysis, like what are the pros and cons, if you will, of staying, like what are the advantages and the disadvantages of changing and not changing. And, you know, you're kind of like looking at your options. You're thinking like, well, yeah, I'm in a shitty job, but like it's comfortable, like I know the routine, I've been here a while, I can kind of coast, versus, you know, well, I would go to another job, but I'd have to look for more jobs, but yeah, they might pay me more, and I might be happier, and I might grow, and like be challenged, like whatever your thing is. Contemplation is like that kind of like bartering, like with yourself, like when you're thinking about it, but like you're not quite sure if you're gonna do it, but like you know, maybe. The next is the preparation phase, and this is when you're like, okay, you know what, like, yeah, a change needs to be made, like, I'm gonna make it, you know, look, what are the things that I need to do, what are the T's that I need to cross, and the I's that I need to dot, and like, what things need to get, like, what loose ends need to get tied up. And so might be the situation where you're like, okay, like, I'm gonna leave the job, so this means that I'm going to need to start looking for, you know, new jobs. I should probably start saving money, like in case I'm unemployed for a little while, whatever. The next stage, number 4, is the action stage. And this is something that, you know, seems like, well, duh, like you've got to act before anything's going to happen. And, you know, I like to point it out a lot of times because you can talk about it, you can think about it, you can dream about it, you can vision board it all day, but until you actually take action, it's just not going to happen. So the action phase or stage is when you are actively doing the things that you thought of in the preparation stage, right? Like you are going through the motions, you are making the moves, like you're actually like doing the things. And this can be one of those situations where like you start doing the things, but then you're like, oh well, like I need some more like preparation, right? Like maybe you go back into like the preparing phase where you're like, well, I need to do this before I can like take more action or like whatever. And then once you have taken the action, you've started to make those changes, you've started to take those steps, there is the maintenance phase. And I think that this is an important one because it's through that maintenance, it's through that repetition that you're actually going to create these new habits, you're actually going to create those new neural pathways, you are actually going to create that change. And this is something that, you know, I've said it before, you know, things aren't linear and it's all R&D. Like it is all like research and development, and the maintenance phase oftentimes allows us the opportunity to reflect. This is when you are like, okay, like I'm good, like I've made the changes, I'm doing the things, but like you got to keep on keeping on, right? Like it's never done. And so that is what the maintenance phase is for. And this might be, you know, one of those things where like you're doing it for a while, but then you start to regress. And you know what? Like it happens. It happens. Like there is research saying that, you know, like if you are recovering from a certain addiction, then, you know, you're probably going to regress like a certain number of times before you actually like, you know, are able to like cut it out altogether. And so allow yourself some grace in that sense. And whenever you're creating these changes, you know, just know that it's not easy, and it's not easy for a reason. It's not easy because it's your body trying to make sure that you are staying alive until the next day. And so with that being said, it's not that you're fighting with it, but at the same time it is that, you know, you have to retrain it. You have to like create like a new dynamic. You have to create like a new habit that's like, hey, like this other thing, like let's do that, and let's, you know, like try this because like it's better for these reasons, and like here I'll show you, like trust me. Like you kind of have to go into it with that kind of mentality where it's like, yeah, I'm present to the fact that this old thing wasn't so good for me, this new thing is probably better, and I know that it's going to take time for me to get there. So that is all I have for you today. Pretty quick. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you got something out of it, and I hope that made sense, and that it helped you to realize that, yeah, like the changes that might be, you know, complicated or difficult or that you haven't quite been able to make yet, like it's not because you don't want to, it's because, you know, your body's just used to something else, and so it's doing its job. So it's just up to you to do the work and ensure that you are taking the time to create these new neural pathways and create these new habits that will serve your highest good. So that's all I have for you. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Bye.